Should I add a link to the Fab Lab on the page where you mention who you presented to?
Yes, I think where you put his name, Simon, then I think you can have this lab as a link. Because I think honestly, it's a great place, but it's also in terms of what we're interested in. Like they have a small library, but it's a library of people who build and they are eager to try new stuff. Like most people, I was giving the demo in the middle of the lab, and a lot of young people. So they were either in master or doing their doctorate. They were not looking at it like a weird thing, and they were curious and basically wanting to try. But because it was the professor or manager of the lab who was doing it, like they couldn't just bump in and try. But I think the atmosphere is quite good, and also because in terms of the hope I had of going from one research theme to another, not just like computer science people like Mark, let's say it would have to be cross-disciplinary to make sure it makes sense, not to just like nerds basically in terms of computer science. So I think this is great because there is this, of course, but there are also like people doing aeronautics, people doing chemistry and physics and electronics.
Creative
a lot of
technologists, basically, right?
Well, I mean, it's mostly hard science, but there are anybody is welcome. It's open, so I think in terms of testing, it's a great potential.
By the way, I just have to test something. Do you hear this loudly?
Yes.
Okay, that means that mic is still active. Good. I had to replug a few things.
Meanwhile, I'm also unplugging things because if I need to do the demo from the Quest, then I need it to actually work.
So here's a more personal question to you. When I go in to share the screen, hang on, I haven't done that yet. I apologize. Also, that's the kind of thing you obviously have to tell me if I forget to do, because.
Yeah, of course.
Should I have my real background, or should I have this kind of background?
What is this? I guess this kind of background, because also
more
we don't
neutral,
want
right?
to talk about AR if it does, or as it doesn't work on the Vision Pro.
Right. Okay. So I'll just have this on. So then. So I've changed this page a little bit. It now looks like this. That's fine, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now I make sure I have my battery in my pocket. And I pull my chair back. I stand up. You can see this well, right?
Yes.
So the pinch to move, is there anything okay, so I can move this right away, the headings, right?
Yes. Yes, it just.
I need your attention for this. This is such an important intro.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do is pinch and move something. Oh, by the way, would it be dangerous to make the cube slightly less transparent? Did you change the value or not? Because this looks fine. This looks a bit weird.
Yes, no, it's too late now.
Fine, that's fine. Okay. So the first thing I do, I move the heading somewhere. And then there's nothing for me to execute except if I tap the wrist. Sorry,
Yeah.
how do you want to run it?
Honestly, if you do show text, like namely if you look at there, if you load the page and there is the instruction, I think you should chill, that going very slowly with your head, as you often tell me when I'm screen sharing from the headset.
Yeah.
And then probably read it aloud because people are going to read it, but it's harder from the headset.
Sure. So I'll say, I have a sphere on my left wrist, can tap it to reveal snippets of code. Now, there is no code where I'm looking currently, so I'll show you guys that in a minute. The one on the left.
Honestly, I think you're overthinking it because the text does say for the next step, look behind and tap that. So I think it's written there.
Yeah, but it says you can tap it to reveal snippets of code. But if I do that, nothing appears. I have to go. I have to go all the way down to the last sentence to see that. Anyway, but it'll be fine. I'll explain it. So after having moved one item just to show that can be done, that was I know what to do here. So
if you want, it's easy for me to say like to reveal snippets of code, and then I can make in parentheses hint behind you.
I don't think you need to. Well, I mean later on, yes, but not hint. But in this case, behind you, because it won't always be. But anyway, so then I look around. Obviously, I try to be a bit slower. Tap. And then I can move this one if I want, just to really prove the point. And then it says here, to execute. Don't worry, I haven't frozen. That has frozen. So that's all gone to the smithereens. But that's absolutely fine. That's demo stuff. So then I just manually go to the next one, right?
It was fine. It was you had to re-enter VR. I don't know why. Sometimes I'm not sure if in the Vision Pro, when you were giving the demo, sometimes it went to the next one, and sometimes it wasn't, right? Or it always went or never went.
Yeah, I mean it's just bad. But I don't mind. This is not our fault. This is Vision. Well, this is horrible in my head.
But that's my question. When you gave the demo, did it always do this, or is it the first time, or is it random?
I told him to go out, I think.
Okay, so then maybe it's better not to do it with the Vision Pro.
Oh, no, we'll just do it. I'll just say this is a current limitation of the Vision Pro because the Vision Pro has a better. Anyway, we only have literally 5 minutes left. So then I go to the link for the table. And I pinch it. Oh no, it has to be with my left hand as well, right?
No, right hand to move stuff.
Okay, but nothing happens.
It has to be in the middle.
Okay, so now I'm sitting down, remembering, and here I'm touching. It's the front of the table. I let go. So now I know, and I'll make a knock. This is a real table. So which means I know what that limitation is. That's very good.
I suggest you don't rush or you don't improvise in terms of what's to be done, because then you feel like you have to remember, whereas in truth there are instructions at the beginning of each demo. So and it's written there. I think for people who do have a headset, it's even something to kind of showcase, because otherwise, like, oh shit, I must remember everything he says, otherwise I'll be stuck. Whereas it's really, hopefully, at least we try to make it very hand-holded. So yeah.
No, I completely agree. I'm happy with that. I will obviously do it slower. I just noticed how bad my glasses are. I'm going to go wash them. Anything else real brief before we start?
It's all good.
I think so. Abrahami just got in touch saying she can't make it today, unfortunately, but she's enthusiastic enough to want to be, in the future. Okay.
Nice.
Oh my goodness, humans.
Where?
Good question. Hey, Mark, we're wearing green today. The camera doesn't show it, but this is actually green. This is fun. Hi, Jim. Good morning. Good early morning, California. So I'm going to put the link in here for a chat. So I have no idea who will be here today. There's a few people who want to be here or can't be here today, including Dini. She has university obligations, but we are here, and a few others. And as a teaser, Mark, some of the things you said repeatedly in the best way recently, we've really been thinking about, and Fabien and I agree. So we look forward to discussing it after this session today. It's one of those, we should do this. Oh, damn, Mark said that, didn't he? Many times. Okay. So yeah, it's all good. There are all kinds of things coming together. Well, we're giving people a few minutes. Any updates or stories or anecdotes or jokes from anyone?
I have, it's totally, well, it's kind of unrelated, but maybe not actually. So I was in Paris last week, and one of my favorite bookshop is there. And it's a philosophy bookshop. And this one, so it's in French, but it's renouncing travels, basically. And it's a discussion, it's a thought about, should we travel? How should we travel? Does it even make sense to travel? Do a lot of the quote unquote criticism at the moment or tropes, because it's been centuries, if not millennia, that people were like, does traveling even make sense? So I'm just a tenth of the book in, but so far it's been very interesting. So what does it mean to travel? And yeah, why do I link it back with the headset is because maybe we don't travel anymore. Maybe we travel in VR. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's not traveling. I don't know.
No.
Fabien, would you repeat the title slowly, please? Okay, thank you.
I'll put the link in the chat.
We are traveling. Just put it plainly, I want to see you guys. Don Norman, though, in one of his books, made an interesting observation, obviously a few decades ago, of how we used to travel to experience new things and new places. And then with the advent of cameras and TV and all of that, we travel in order to see what other people have experienced and to communicate it back. So the whole point of traveling has changed, and maybe it should change again.
Well, that's interesting in the context. I'm, as some of you know, I'm writing a paper sort of looking back on the spatial hypertext and sort of trying to make sense of it, not least when I realized that probably 2/3 of people of working age were born or essentially grew up with the web. So if you say hypertext to them and then try and explain what it was in the 80s, you get a sort of silent eye roll for very understandable reasons. It's not a judgment. It's saying, okay, but how do you recontextualize it? And I was just, this point about the travel is that all too often we look for a standardized view of things. What's the point of it? Well, you know, I'm no amount of Instagram posts are going to get me on a flight to go somewhere that somebody said is beautiful. If the picture's really good, it's good. And, you know, I might get for other reasons. So, rather akin to the thing of like sort of text and XR. I mean, maybe the answer is we shouldn't be looking for there to be in a sense, a single defining purpose. The reality is most of us will probably want to do slightly different things. So the sort of useful way of looking at it is more of the sort of the toolbox. And you can say the same with travel. So instead of there being a point to travel, the point will actually differ by person. And the things that you do or seek to do in it probably vary. And I think that more modular conception of things is useful. And ironically, Alexander's pattern books springs leaps into mind. So there's a bridge across to architecture for you. So I think some of that plays across the piece.
Indeed. I'm just sending out a few text messages here to our community.
Hello from brunch in super gloomy New York.
Hello, brunch.
Oh, it looks like we're ready to have a hurricane. It's so dark and black outside.
Be safe.
Hopefully it'll just be a rain. But it doesn't look good. Certainly no sense of spring in the air at all now.
Yeah, you're probably catching the storms we got yesterday, moving northeast.
Yeah, you guys are on the same continent. Almost done, guys. Right, okay. Yeah, Ismail was supposed to be physically here today, but he couldn't come here because for some reason we had a fire at a substation at Heathrow Airport, but the electrical grid head says Heathrow still had power. So it's all very, very weird what happened last week. And I'm sure there will be a book or a mini TV series about it at some point. Anyway, the most important thing here is the dialogue from you, the core team, and the record of this for the future. So I think maybe we start and see who may filter in. That was a massive yes, let's start. Okay. You can, of course, see my screen, right?
Yes.
So I can see all of you on the side now, actually. So if you want to do hand things and stuff, I can see it. First of all, who has a headset available today to join some of the demos? Not that you have to, but if you'd like, you're very welcome to. The link here is for that. So if you want, but when I put the headset on and fiddle about a little bit, Fabien is going to brief us all about the demo he did last week. But the introduction by me is as follows. To me, this work, I'm so grateful to be working with you guys. I think it is really, really important work. And I think that the dialogue, we can do something really useful. And as I've said many times, this is the only time in history we're entering this space. So it's so important we do these experiments so that in the future people can have some virgin thinking, some naive thinking, some experiment thinking, some not tied down thinking. It's really, really important. And I also find it incredibly stressful, but it's the best kind of stress. It's our work stress. So the almost unlimited options for what to do in a headset are huge. And to find out what we really need to do in there, one of the things is, I can't, oh, hi Rob. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to scroll a bit. Mark is still here, excellent. One of the things I hope Mark Anderson will talk to us about in a future session is the actuality of spatial hypertext. Because so many people in our meetings keep bringing up how hard it is to organize information and organize thought. I also come back to that. That is the hardest thing. And what we want to build here is something that will truly help people with the hard stuff. It's not just about showing something neat, obviously, right? So I look forward to having that discussion with you guys in the near future, thinking of the hard stuff and how we can help. Fabien, anything else I should cover in the introduction before I hand the baton to you?
That, like everything else we do, pretty much, it's open for comments and suggestion. The goal here is not to bedazzle you with impressive things around. It's like, oh, what if we were to do this differently? What if this is actually a bad idea when we try to do that? Just that I'll put a little timer because there is like a dozen or so of steps in the demo, and we have just quote unquote an hour and a half. So, but yes, don't be shy. Feel free to even if you feel like we've discussed about something before, maybe we didn't hear it properly in terms of understanding. Maybe it doesn't or didn't make sense then. Maybe it makes sense now. So really, don't hesitate to raise the virtual or physical hand or just chat.
I want to emphasize that point. And by the way, I see Carl Heavenstraight and Alan are here now. Wonderful. When people have very, very different views of the world, communication can be easier because you have a theory of mind that the other person doesn't get it and you don't get it listening to them. There are challenges there, but I think there's a specific challenge of when people have a very similar understanding of something, it actually becomes really quite hard to say, hang on, yes, but I'm talking about this angle of it. That becomes really hard. So if you guys feel that we're not listening, it may be that we just don't get it. That is really, really important. And I'm particularly glad that Alan is here because he is Mr. Large Piece of Paper. Whatever means we have to do whatever level of sketching is so crucial because, as I said, there's so many unknowns. Just the act of, I'll say one, and then we'll go into the demo, but if we say, I want you to be able to take stuff and move it around, right? That has a myriad of issues right there. Where on the thing can you touch it in actuality? So what Fabien has done, which is really, really clever, we have to touch thing on the left side because that's the beginning of it, right? But when you do that, it obscures the item. So therefore, your hand becomes transparent, right? These are the kind of non-obvious things that you just have to experience. It's really weird. So it is living in a completely different set of rules than what we're used to. So we're trying here to have a series of things that the emotion, Fabien, and I've been talking about back and forth. Oh, Jim, yes, come in. I just want to say, we want people to put on the headset and feel, oh, I can do stuff here. Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
A thought that I had from 20 years ago, but has always remained in my mind that complements what you're saying is that consensus starts with a common understanding of the problem. And by that, I mean consensus relative to solutions. I have a book about the financial crisis in 2008. Let me get it for a second. I had not planned to show this, but I've added a title at the bottom which says Impediment to Conversation and Discussion. My conclusion was that this 2.5-inch document had minority opinions objecting to the conclusions because there was no common understanding of the problem. So I would argue that integral to your comments, Frode, is the importance of mutual agreement about what the problem is, almost first, or at least discussion simultaneously. End of interruption.
No, it's not an interruption. It is a very useful extension, and we thank you. It's really hard to define the problem because what we're trying to do is an augmentation. It is a little bit to get rid of bad stuff today, but it's also to launch us into something better. So that's a bit of an unknown and difficult, positively difficult. But we do know that there are some principles, particularly of academic literature, which is connecting. Academic literature is connected reading and connected writing. So there are some things that we need to keep flowing around in our dialogue. But and this we will maybe talk about a little bit after the presentation today, the issue of organizing your thoughts. It's bloody hard. I have my map thing in Author and I'm trying to do stuff. It's a mess. So Jim, part of that is definitely the problem. And I have a feeling Mark has some interesting comments on that.
I was just going to follow on for that in this issue of sort of the understanding the common problem, because I was also, my mind strayed back to my days of Float when actually a lot of problem solving was done by people who had absolutely massively different perspectives on what was going on and with little skill overlap, and that was quite deliberate. So an interesting aspect of understanding the problem is probably agreeing that there is a problem, rather than being standing on the edge and being, in a sense, thinking this isn't my problem, but I'll take part. And the other thing is a common understanding that the problem doesn't have to only be understood from one perspective, because I think that's the thing most of us find hard.
Absolutely.
So what we end up doing is nudging the problem sort of perspective round to what seems natural to us. thus actually closing off understanding for somebody else. And it's not deliberate. I think it's, we do it because we think we're actually sort of helping, because we're making it right, and in fact we're merely making it more wrong for somebody else. So part of the getting the consistency of view is having the comfort to participate in something in a sense you half understand, but be confident that other people hold the parts of the jigsaw you don't.
Yeah, I mean, these are really important topics. And if we go on the website and we look at our record and schedule, you'll see we have some theme discussions that you've all been part of. We should please suggest specific topics, and we will really happily go into exactly what you guys are talking about. And today, of course, is first quarter presentation, so we'll start that now. So I will put on my headset. And the way we're going to do this, Fabien will now talk a little bit about Paris, and then he will basically remote control drive me.
Right. So about Paris itself, it's a lovely city. But what was interesting is, in order to, at least I hope, try to relieve pressure for the symposium at the end of the year, we thought it would be good to, instead of doing like an end of the year report or last quarter report, to split it into pieces, so that some of the stress would be right now, or rather last week, in order to basically backtrack from like the big presentation to smaller pieces. So Paris was kind of an excuse for that, to meet a friend, acquaintance of mine he's working at the Fab Lab in the Sorbonne University in Paris. He's a physics professor, physics and chemistry actually, and he's very open-minded. Namely, he works with XR, and he's managing a Fab Lab. So for people who are not familiar with it, a Fab Lab is like a fabrication laboratory that is open to the public at large, as long as they're mindful basically about the tools and the process. And the idea is like, we don't really know what you're building. You just have to build it in the open. So you share the process, you share the outcome. And by default, everything and every tool is open. So I think in terms of who comes there, why they come there, and the appetite potentially for emerging technology, it's a welcoming group. But as I was briefly mentioning to Frode, what I think is exciting is they're not all computer science experts. Some of them don't even care about computer science or even computers. They care about spaceships, like actual aeronautics. They care about just wet stuff, so biology. So I think it's a really interesting mix. So it was great to go there. A bit of pressure, as I said, but I hope, at least for us, that's pressure that's going to be a relief for next quarter and the quarter after this. So yeah, that was last week. Sadly, because the conversation went quite well, I was more in a let's chat and explore mode than let's record. So I don't have a video of it. I will though do my best to record a video of them trying. But that went quite well. And it was I really enjoyed it, and I will also share some of the feedback that they had. I'd rather not share this now, because I want to hear your feedback. I want to see what you think about all this. But yeah, that was quite an interesting and challenging moment.
Thank you, Fabien. So just tell me, because I can't see you, obviously. Anybody else have a headset on right now? No, that's fine. Okay, so I click through to this page, and you can do it whenever you want to. And I'm going to go to the first link and do all the clicks to give permissions away for everything in my life. So now I'm in the environment. So now please note that even though you should be able to use this. Hi, Edgar, I can't actually see you. I'm a bit busy now. Sorry about that. It is supposed to be a seated and standing environment, but most of it is actually best standing. I just want to make that clear. So you can see I'm in a 3D space, right? So as we can see here, I have a sphere on my left wrist. I have a cube on my right wrist. I can move things, like I said. See the transparent hand? Kind of cool, right? So I moved that. there's nothing to execute here. So the right hand is movement, the left hand is execution, but there are no snippets because it's behind me. You toggle seeing these commands by touching the left wrist. And there is an issue with the implementation of WebXR in the Vision headset, which is what I'm using now. So even though I can move this anywhere, when I try to act on it, it doesn't necessarily go to the next page. Yeah, we sometimes have a little freezing. And that, I'm sure Apple will fix that. So now we'll go to this next one here, which is dealing with the physical reality of where I am. Sorry, that was a wrong click. If you have questions, please speak them, and Fabien or me will try to answer them. So there was a table in front of me, and the Apple headset, permission, privacy, all of that is a big deal. So I can't just instantly scan the room. But I know that the table's kind of here. Listen. So I pinch this yellow bar. If I just do it properly. There we go. And I lower it, and I hit the table, go to the front of the table, and I let go. That now represents the border of the physical table. We haven't used the dimensions of the table yet, but at least now, listen, it is here. So it means that I can do a standing demo, and I have a very good feeling of where I am in the space. Any questions on this?
I can make a couple of remarks. A quick thing on the previous demo also, we added some of the instruction on the hands themselves. In case somebody like left, right, or whatnot, they were not familiar with it, and I'm not even joking about this, the instructions are on the fingers themselves. It's something we could add to every demo, but the goal is to make it increasingly focused on the content and less on the meta aspect of how to do things, and rather people just do it. And a little anecdote also for the demo in Paris. One thing I can share, which I was extremely happy about, is at the third demo, like after the next demo, at the third demo, the person who never used the system before was basically doing it naturally without looking at the instruction. They were tapping the wrist to toggle the command, look behind, and go to the next demo rather efficiently, like in second or less. And it's not somebody who is like using VR every day. So that was a quite positive outcome on like how to line up basically those different individual elements.
Yeah. So
Question.
now I'm going to touch my wrist.
I think there is a question.
Yeah, just a question about the table bar process.
Yep.
What is that for the user to know, like what's the value of that? Or
Twofold. Number one, so you don't bump into the table. Number two, we're looking into whether some of the experiences should use the table. So I'm now seated, going to move my chair forward again. So I'm sitting quite close. I can now rest my hands on here. So we could have this as an information space where you have the substrate of the table being part of the experience.
Cool. Okay.
So you could have a PDF even here, and you could highlight by drawing on it. You could have an information display. It's just we only have it in one of them. It's an experiment of how loose in your brain do you want to be, and how much connection with the physical world do you want to have.
Great. Thank you.
You might want to try also to pinch on one of the, let's say, the right or the left yellow ball to stretch the table itself, either in height or in depth. So you can like reconfigure the shape of the table with the right hand only.
Yeah, and then it moved a bit, but yes, those are things we have to decide what to look into. So if I now touch my left wrist, ta-da, these things are all snippets of code, right? So it says right there, that is executable code. So for instance, there is a background here, which we can't see. Shall I show that, Fabien?
Of course.
Ta-da. Right, it's not the most, I'll stand up again. It's not the most sophisticated background, but we're experimenting with how grounded you want to be. So even though it's very cartoonish, it exists, and I can hide it again. And of course, if I want these commands somewhere else, I can put them somewhere else. This is related to the table. So you have an opportunity to do so many things, but if you don't want to see any of that, it goes away. I'll go to
a quick note also on the background. It sounds quite anecdotal, but what's funny or interesting in our opinion is that people have very strong reactions to it. Namely that some people want an absolutely empty background or no animation, no noise, basically, and others feel very uncomfortable with this. And I haven't found an obvious patterns, let's say, on who those people are or whatnot. So I think it means letting really the user choose what they want. Like, do they want something very busy because I don't know, they're used to live in, that's going to be a stereotype, but let's say New York, and other lives in the countryside and they want something more relaxed. But having the option to choose how busy the background is or what it is, so far that's been the best compromise on this. And it might also be not necessarily per person, but like per activity. Maybe they want to be relaxed, maybe tense. I think it's flexible is the best option.
Yeah.
Another quick question, if I might.
Of course.
For specifically when others have tried this out, the demos, has there been any comment about the perspective of the words themselves, and is that annoying, or is it grounding in its own way? Do people want to have other options been looked at? I've been seeing it like lines of text that all has a perspective, and I get why I think, but I'd love to hear if people find that disorienting or actually it makes more sense.
Do you mean the floating in space rather than as on a substrate?
I mean, all of the lines of text have their own Cartesian coordinates, as opposed to if like you turned your head and every bit of text was always sort of like flat and two-dimensional. I guess they're all three-dimensional.
Fabien did build a series of planes, kind of like tables that things could stick on. So that what you're saying now is definitely part of the conversation. Fabien, I'd love to hear more of the feedback you have on that.
First, we're going to see that in the next ones, because there are a couple of solutions like snapping, like adjusting, forcing the rotation, or also note text, as in gestures, and also where was I with icons, basically. So 3D models. So just, yeah, we're going to see some of that. I don't want to make the teaser, but we're going to see some of the alternatives after.
Just
But
a quick.
there was no, at least nobody was like, I hate floating text and it makes me dizzy. Like, I've not heard that. I've heard like, oh, there is too much text and it feels a little bit overwhelming, but there was no strong adverse reaction to floating text regardless of orientation. I mean, I did not hear that, at least.
So Fabien, at the moment, all the commands are essentially set into the environment. Is there any reason, I mean, just as a question, open-ended question, is there any reason that they couldn't essentially be attached to the viewer? So in other words, when you turned, so your commands remain in relation to you rather than the environment. I'm not sure that's necessarily, I mean, I don't know what it's like because I've not tried it, but I just wonder if that's something that's also to consider.
Some of them have been. So, for example, there is a floating HUD that we've been hiding, and also the basically when Frode is tapping on the wrist, that is a comment that is there, and basically one of the next demo. I don't know where we're on the list, but I think it's right after. But yeah, tapping on the wrist is executing such a command, and that one is relative to your body. It is not shown, the content of that command. It could be shown. Could be interesting to actually show it so that people understand that itself is nothing special.
So this is the reason we're doing the demo today, for exactly that kind of question, Mark. It's exactly the kind of thing we have to check. Should we, last year we had commands on the hand. Should we have more? We're probably going to do that to an extent. Fabien has been experimenting with which fingers are reliable, not all of them. That's a current thing. And can we do here as well as here? Should they be on a panel? Should they be on a floating thing? Should they be on a HUD? These are exactly the things we need to look at.
Mark, if your question was related to like, can we execute commands based on the orientation of the headset? That is possible. Typically ill-advised. A lot of stuff for XR, because the context is so foreign to most people. The fully immersive aspect of XR adds a lot of extra overhead to learning a new application, that if you start executing commands and running things automatically and the user isn't aware of what triggered it, that can be distracting, disorienting, or other things. So it's typically best to have those execute on something tactile that the user has to execute explicitly.
No, I can see that. I was actually sort of thinking more in terms of like a helmet HUD display, head-up display, so it moves with you. I suspect, again, it's a one-size-does-not-fit-all, in the sense that sometimes it's useful to know where the commands that you might interact with, such as the ones that, floating space at the moment, are in relation to you. So
Mark,
for instance, you might want to keep them out of your central vision.
So look at the screen now. You see instructions, right pinch. You see how it's kind of got something happening on top of it.
I don't think with the video compression we can't see it.
It's hard.
It's the same thing I pointed out last week. It's that floating box.
Yes, it's the floating cursor. So we do have a HUD in here.
If you move it over the white
Manuscript, we'll
manuscript, then you may see it.
Perhaps not. No, to be clear, I wasn't trying to sort of derail things. I was just the idea that I was noodling with is this thing that if you're essentially doing sense making, you're moving things around in the space, you might not want your controls sort of where you want to work. So if in a sense, if they're attached, a sense fixed towards your periphery, that leaves the center vision free to operate. But I repeat the fact that I'm sure there are all sorts of other things you might do where that actually works the other way. So,
Well, Mark, this is really absolutely central and core to what we're talking about. Now, by the way, I'm looking down. Can you see this circle I'm standing on?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
This is meant to be a little bit of an in-between having an environment and none. So it gives a sense of the space you have, even though we don't know the size of your office. But Fabien, so please write that down, and we will investigate different ways of doing it. It is basically super core. Fabien, what shall I do next?
You should move on, because I don't think we have 5 hours, and we have quite a few left. So please go to the next demo.
So did you see what happened there, guys? This is really important. It addresses what Alan said. Why is that over there? I didn't let go. It's because of, let me show panels. It's on a panel, right? So it'll stick to panels. So if I lift it now and I let go close to this, it goes on that panel. So that addresses the notion of the capability of having text on specific areas rather than all over the place. So it's what we call super cool. That's not what I meant.
That was a quick comment on this specifically. Snapping to panels, I think technically it's pretty trivial, but it gave a kind of like superpower affordance. Like it goes where you expect it to go, basically without going all the way to finishing the movement or the gesture. And I was surprised because they really loved it. It's like, wow, it sticks to the panel where I expect it to go. I was like, yeah. So what? But somehow this kind of, when you do something, but we don't really finish it and it does it for you, that was somehow very exciting.
Yeah, it's literally magic. You feel like you're in Fantasia. Should I do shortcut binding over straight? Should I go straight to highlight text maybe?
No, do shortcut binding, because I think it actually addressed the two questions, both from Adam and Mark.
Sure.
Alan and Mark.
Okay, absolutely. So I have no snippets, so here they are. So this currently does that. So tell me exactly what to do now. Shall I show panels onto the rest?
I think a toggling one is more obvious. So I think on the left you have toggle anchors, for example. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It wasn't in, okay, so I drag this onto here.
Which also show the HUD, because normally it's hidden. But if there is some like feedback for the user and we want it to always be like literally in your face, that's where it's happening.
So you see the blue dots? They appear and disappear based on so this sphere on my left wrist now is a shortcut for that.
Yes, which to address Mark's point is that's kind of the heuristic is things are floating in space because you want to benefit from organizing things in space, but some of those things or actions they are so important wherever you are in space, you probably want them quote unquote with you. So drag and dropping it in on yourself on your wrist, that's that point that it attaches to you basically, so it's always there.
So it basically, as we expand, maybe we can do more parts of the body. You can yourself very easily decide what those things should do. That was super cool, right, guys? Yes, that was super cool.
Yeah.
Right. Oh no, horror. It's a PDF looking type of thing. Fabien, please drive me very carefully.
Yes. So one thing I can also say that people are not going to really believe, but it is actually, especially people who did try VR and text in VR, it's actually enjoyable. When you have this massive piece of text in front of you, it would look scary, but it's actually, I don't know how to say, especially if you tried VR for the last 5 or even 10 years, normally when you would see this, like, oh no, text, and I enjoy it. On the Quest 3, with all the super strong foveated rendering and anti-aliasing, in terms of performance, it's not as pleasant, but on the Vision Pro, yeah, I was quite surprised. So I suggest now that you pick, for example, any line of text and you move it from the quote-unquote document, which is indeed a real PDF from a real published paper, and you release it, and then you can basically select and highlight with a certain color, and if you show with your left wrist the different code snippets, then you can change the color of those highlights. So they are on your right, and if you left pinch on another. And what happens, I'll put the link in the chat, is that we're not going to try this for the example, but or for the live demo, because I'm too scared. You can see the 2D viewer, basically just a web page which loads the JSON that is going to be saved. Okay, let's actually try it just for the fun of it, and I'm going to regret this. But if Frode, you show the commands and you look at your bottom right, and you do save highlights. Yeah, so I get the little notification that's been modified. And if people refresh the page with a highlight, they see the new highlight that you selected. The goal there is that you're not going to spend your whole work week in XR or even the day in XR. So at some point you need to leave it. And when you're going to leave it, you're going to keep on working on those different things. So yeah, it's to be able to keep on working, send it to your colleagues, etc. Think in the headset, but keep on working with your current tools. So there is a JSON file behind this, but otherwise there is a little or short HTML 2D
Fabien, let's not overload too much with the behind the scenes, because that's an incredibly important aspect in itself. I think we really need to highlight what you've done here, because this is quite brilliant. We're used to one way of interacting with text, but I know you've all seen it, but let me just talk you through it again. I choose orange, and then I lift this and let go, and it becomes orange. Is that something we would have thought about in traditional world? It makes no sense. It is very very convenient. It just literally is so natural. So yes, of course, it's important that this can be written back to the JSON, but I just wanted to really highlight how cool it is to actually do it. So I hope you all will go in and start messing with this. Can I show the pens now? Is that a good time?
Yes, yes.
So I just want to point out something really interesting. I initially thought you would lift the pen like this, because that's how you would lift a physical pen. However, as Fabien pointed out, you may lift it like this and move it around, but when you actually draw, your hand is actually towards the tip. So lifting isn't useful in a sense, but drawing is. So now that I'm holding it close to the tip, you know, I can do this kind of stuff.
And if you bring the tip very close to your eye, I don't know the video compression, but we can see the color of the tip, which is the color that's going to be applied to the document. And if you take the other highlighter, you'll have the other color of the tip, and will do the other color on the document. So this is unstructured or free highlight, so you don't get the JSON out. You could still get some text out, but it's more circling or drawing an arrow or something that is less structured, but that you might have some habits. Let's say again doing a cross or whatever. So I think it leaves a lot of freedom to the user.
Very super cool. What shall I do?
So it's a bad idea, but actually do next page, please. So in the bottom right.
This one?
No, next page.
Next page, okay. Right hand or left hand? Left hand.
You can move it with right hand and then you execute with.
Yeah, I'm going to lift it up here for us to look at, and I'm going to execute it.
Yeah. So the highlight stays, which is a mistake or a bug, let's say. It shouldn't, but the point is, it's a real PDF. Again, it's not like a bunch of text there. And if there is a page with images or figures, it should show them, but I'm not sure if in that document there is. And you can go back and forth, but it's pretty instantaneous. It's been pre-processed server-side, so it's just loading another JSON. I don't remember if this PDF has figures. I guess not. But if there are figures, you will see them right there and in the right layout, in the right position, basically.
So I need to highlight something really important here, everyone, and that is the concerns that specifically Alan and Mark were highlighting. The reason you have these things floating in now in space is at this stage you can do whatever the heck you want with them. You don't feel there is a right and a left button or anything like that. So it allows us as a community to come up with interactions, because just like this can be typed, look at this, boom, right? So now if I tap here, it goes next page. It means that because of Fabien's incredibly flexible environment, we can put commands, you know, on a little finger or here or whatever. We can experiment. So it's super cool.
Yeah. And again, that's kind of, I'm glad that you've done it because the whole point of a lot of those quote unquote weird stuff like floating and whatnot is to bring freedom for composability, so that indeed if that's the thing you do often, let's say next page, that's the one you're going to do. If you don't want, or if for this workflow it's something you don't do, well, you don't do it. And it was nice that you also moved the command next page in front of the document, because that's what was useful for you to get the feedback right away. But it's up to you to do it your way. All the positions can be saved. It's up to the user. I do suggest we move on to the next demo.
Okay, sorry, I was having just a little too much fun. Right. Okay, so reference cards, right?
Yep.
Oops, that's not what I meant. It would be so nice to be able to allow this just once. So super cool. Yeah. Tell me what to do so I don't just make a mess instantly.
You can make a mess. It's okay. I think it's you can make a mess part. So
I don't know how it looks for you guys, but when I look at it really close up, it's like a ridiculously high resolution print. So spatial hypertext, I wonder what that is. I'm going to look at that later, so I move it over here. Wikis, yeah. So,
And
No.
for the also the visual explanation, when you see the white cube, is like an open access document is available. Like Mort did the work on this JSON of all the references. When there is a green one, it means the document itself has been downloaded and pre-processed. So if you think back about the previous demo about highlights, typically you would imagine opening the full document when it's there. Otherwise, downloading it either on desktop, because you might not have access. I mean, it's not open access, but you can still add it with a drag and drop feature, which we did not show, but we all know works. And yes, after this, if there is no cube, it's not open access, it's not downloadable. But again, if you do have yourself professionally access to it, you can just add it there.
Okay, that's it. That's important, but what's more important is, I mean, it may be a headache-inducing for you watching it because I'm moving my head quite a lot. The reason I'm moving my head quite a lot is because this is fast and clean. It's actually very, very pleasant. So this notion that we've all had of putting bits of knowledge in space, this particular demo, we do that already. You know, the fact that it's real data behind it is really cool, but it's even cooler that it's just, I mean, look at this. How many wrong movements have you seen me make, like grabbing and not getting it? It's been a few, but very, very rare. You know, this is going to step back and enjoy my mess, right? Look at this. This is a bit holy moly. And as we've talked in the community a lot, this is the first step. The second step is how we organize it, and then how we kind of put folders or hide stuff, and how we start doing not just a manual thing, but yeah, absolutely amazing. Any comments or massive wows on this? I think it's wow.
Yeah, Jim.
I am immensely impressed, number one, with the capability. But I also think there's a simultaneous problem, not that impedes anything, but that we need to be aware of. And that is, with such flexibility, you need to have a base of operations which is stable at the same time. You know, for example, when well, I'll use something here. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But it's a graphic of Bob Horn doing a presentation probably 10 years ago at the University of Illinois, Chicago, where he has a 6-foot high, 25-foot electronic screen behind him. So it's probably 5 years ago. And he can click on any one of those rectangles and it becomes the entire screen representing his infomurals, which in some cases are 3 feet high and 16 feet long. I don't think Bob is in the audience right now, but what strikes me is that this real world example, given a super screen, is not unlike the diagram you have as a background with rectangles over the entire back of the room on all 3 walls.
So Jim, I can state categorically that we fully agree with the issue you're talking about, and it's a very important and interesting part of the research.
Quick addition to that, I agree with what Jim's saying, but also to connect it back to the satisfying heuristic of the snapback when you grab text. I wonder if a behavior, an invisible behavior or dynamic like the snapback might be an analog to a baseline in VR, right? Like, so if you're moving things around, but there's a feeling of, oh, these fit together, or oh, you've made these separate. That might get the feeling across of because I agree with what you're saying about just placing things anywhere. You don't have that kind of good feeling that, oh, I've done it in the right spot, or this is where I want it to be. Anyway.
So a comment on this also, like Jimmy, who is there today, made a suggestion 2 weeks ago, I think, about if, so I'll show my physical mechanical keyboard, my Bluetooth one on the webcam. If you have such a thing, namely if you're in VR and you have the hardware and you are in the space that allows to use it, why not use it? And so what we've done, but it's not in this demo that today, that's why I'm saying it aloud, is if you press Shift or modifier key, but let's say Shift in the working example, then your hand becomes green. That means you have a modifier applied, the other hand, and then if you release, then it's going to snap. So you can also think about this kind of behavior that, oh, I want free form, let's say, moving by default. But if I, for whatever reason, wanted to either snap to an object or to the previous object at the same time, you can imagine applying modifiers from, let's say, your keyboard or whatever other input you want. So it's not because you can release freely that you don't always have to release freely. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah. So I hope this room demo test experience I'm in right now both impress you and irritate you. Irritate you into alternative ways of dealing with it, just like Fabien was talking about, there are ways to constrain and not constrain. Because this is one of the obvious promises of hypertext in, hypertext in XR. Put stuff where you want it, but what does where you want it mean? It will not always mean as a mess. Right, shall I go to the next?
Yes, please. A quick comment also, I think it's a little bit, I don't know if that's either pedantic or too humble, but it's a little bit like the whiteboard, or like I see behind Alan, you have a whiteboard. Most of us have whiteboard, blackboard stuff around us. And I think the tool itself is invaluable, basically, especially because it costs close to nothing. But I think without like a process, for example, I don't know if you use Kanban and then you have those columns with the different tasks. Once you do have a super powerful whiteboard or place to hang stuff, you still need to learn about the process of using it the right way. You can design your own process, you can show your own process, but I think when we see the quote-unquote mess that Frode did just before, to me it begs the same kind of question: is what is the process to use such space efficiently or in a way that prompts creativity, productivity, whatever you want it to be? It's like the tool itself, some of the features or affordances are there, but you still have to think it relative to your own workflow and thus kind of build a new process or use someone else's process on like the different steps within it.
So if time allows, I'm going to do a 2-minute, I have a few screenshots I'd like to share with you, because you'll notice these panels have depth, and we've been talking about volumes. Rob introduced the notion of volumes. These are actually volumes. They're not just two-dimensional. So when you open a volume, you may not necessarily want a cube. You may actually want something like this. So I think it's nice to see this. But we've done the snapping. So shall I go to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. So super cool. Unfolding cube.
Quick anecdote while it loads, but if you try this on the Quest 3, when you do next demo, it's going to go to the next demo. It's going to feel pretty much part of the same set of demos. It's not going to be like I go out of VR and I go back in VR. It's like one after the other in sequence. So yeah.
Drive me.
Well, pick the cube. So the references we see on top, they were snapped to the back of the face and were attached to it. I think it's going to be tricky to read, so you'll have to just trust us. But they were also the same, like pulled from a real dynamic source. If we were to upload a new JSON, please don't do it during the live demo, but you would get the updated data. And then you can apply to the cube. So a bit more context for people who did not have the chance to be there during the last few weeks. The cube is the primitive we explore in order to have something in between, kind of directly the body, for example, the wrist, or the environment. It's something we can carry or move around, attach things to, and play with or work with.
So here the cube is unfolded.
And you can imagine the same affordance of snapping to a specific face, even though now it's like facilitated with having just the first face, but it's the same kind of thing. And same like features in terms of dropping a comment to a face to apply a thing to that face.
This is a bit dangerous. You're quite close to my table and computer here, but I'm going to do room scale, see what happens. Wow. Okay, that's a big cube.
I think, yeah, it's probably better to refold it and then unfold it.
Oh, so I need to do palm scale.
It might have done it. I'm
Refold,
not sure. You need
room
to
scale. So, yeah, so that worked flawlessly. Did you see what I did? So yeah, small room scale, but still, nevertheless, room scale. So we can, yeah, I look forward to everybody having actually tried this because I've been thinking about this a lot, but being in it is a very, very different thing.
Is this like an metaphorically sort of like an embodied hub of interests? Is it what it's supposed to be? Kind of like if you had overlapping rooms where one is history, but another is like, I don't know, technology, which intersects with history. This is like the technology room.
We haven't actually made those decisions yet. We're at an early phase of talking about the cubes as spaces. There's also the question of a paper versus a journal. Is that a cube and a cube and all of those types of things? So that's early days.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, in a way, I think that room scale cube is kind of cheating in a way because it's the whole thing. It's almost like a multimedia experience. You can't easily compare different things. Should we do a screenshot on audio or not?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So here we go. So we're in this. Please drive me.
I guess so. One of the comments that is on your left that has been there for most of the demos, or yeah, no, actually there. You can show the cube if you want, and then you can take a screenshot. You have to imagine that your Kubrick or whoever your favorite director is, and then you look at the thing. So you might have, okay, well, that was a bit faster than I expected, but that's cool.
Sorry.
You heard the ding, so that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good problem to have. Yeah, if you grab also the center of the screenshot, you can move it like any other primitive or element with your right hand.
Of course.
And so yeah, the screenshot is from your position. The idea, I will also try to show you all that it is indeed live.
Oh, I made it red, but not green by mistake.
Let me see. No, it's not by mistake, so that's something else we'll have to show at the end.
Right.
So let me just.
So was that exported to you outside of the environment, the screenshot?
Well, so yeah, that's what you don't see, but I'm putting in the chat for anybody else to see. Is that the screenshot that you just took is available now for anybody else to see. No offense, but it's not a super exciting screenshot. I wish you had like put your thumbs up or something, but it's perfectly fine. I'm just teasing you. The point though is the same as the JSON for the highlights. It's you're not going to spend your whole day in XR, so you're going to have to to put the alternative one. So yeah, you're not going to spend your whole day in XR. And it means when you leave XR, you're going to have to show something for it, basically. And ideally something that prompts new ideas or workflow or something like this. So yeah, that's one way to go between device or also like you share that link to colleagues. The idea being that maybe some of the things you've done before, like for example, when you were organizing the cards for the references, then you need to show it to somebody who might not give a hoot about XR. They just care about what you've shown, and they might not even have like a 3D capable device. So you just show them the image.
Exactly.
It prompted ideas, and then you share just that screenshot outside of XR.
Yeah, very cool. Should I go next?
Yes, please.
Okay. So audio recording, just does that work in the vision?
The recording itself, yes. The playing of the output, no. But you will. It's still usable, I think. It's useful enough to show it.
There may be a permissions issue where you need to have played a sound with a trusted gesture outside of WebXR before enabling it once you're in WebXR.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So it's
So should I just start this?
So yeah, first set up recorder. Yeah, and then record and say something intelligible in English, please.
Something intelligent. Yes, so intelligent.
But so the microphone is not blinking, so you need to press on the first letter of the comment, not the icon itself.
Something intelligible in English.
I guess you did not.
Let's set it up again properly.
Maybe.
I would imagine you need to use a trusted gesture inside the 2D view in order to be able to enable audio input. So that's something that would be necessary to do before you jump into the XR in Vision Pro. And as frustrating as that is, I don't really see a better way to do it. Recording your voice is pretty sensitive, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
once you've done it once, it does work though. So I'll just in the interest of time, I put also a link in the chat where basically you see, or you can hear rather, well, both of them. You can see some of the text that's been said because we do a step of text to speech after. Some of it in French, for example, the second one was done in Paris, so you don't have it transcribed. But otherwise, it's there. The goal, just to help a bit people to step back beside the technical challenge with a gesture, just a gesture, is the point is you take a screenshot, cool. Hopefully that's a perspective that is meaningful to the idea, but it's probably not enough. You probably want a little bit of explanation of why it's a viewpoint that is interesting. And if you can have a recorded audio, like, oh, I record this and this is a bug, or I had this idea about this document or this highlight. So not only you have the screenshot, but you have your voice over it. And then again, the same way you have the 2D page is you take stuff out, let's say, of XR if you want to.
Absolutely.
If you have the Quest 3, same, you can try this. You can save on the server, no worries. There is some space left. And then you can hear or play the previous notes, record more audio notes, link them to the screenshot. It's on there, but indeed you have to allow it. So you might have to. You should see prompts. Actually, probably Frode, that's what happened. There was a pop-up, and you had to go out of XR and back, but that's okay. But if it did not ask for the, actually try set up recorder and then leave XR.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and then try, but normally it prompts. Voilà. Thank you. Now,
Hello, I'm recording something. Big.
And stop under. Yeah.
And then save.
Yes.
And you got a ping.
Yes, so I got two ping. I got the first one, which is to say I got the audio, and the second ping is to say I got the transcription. So I will put the link again in the chat, but then you can...
That's an important point, actually, that there's also transcription.
Yes. And then the transcription was, hello, I'm recording something big.
Yeah. So with this... I'm just going to jump to one of the background demos because, well, oops. So this is experiments on what to have in the background. So here we have the little blocky floor.
While you do that, there is a question from Mark, which is a pretty good idea indeed. Right now, it waits for 1 second before taking the screenshot. First of all, it should show it. For example, like 0.1 or 0.9, blah, blah, blah. Something visual actually would be better, probably. Like a circle that becomes null when you are ready. And that indeed there should be like a kind of grid or square or something. Say, hey, here is your current viewpoint, because otherwise, you need to kind of guess it, and it's not great UX. But yeah, thanks for the suggestions. Good idea.
So here we have an animated background, of which there are several. Sorry, my eyes are not always accurate. Here is a non-color background, but there's some sort of a shape, some sort of a thing to experiment with. And the customization upload, I guess we do out of the headset, right? To explain.
I mean, you can open it because people hopefully, I mean, you saw it already. The manuscript was white and now it's yellowish. What's important is like Frode didn't write down any code, and still that URL is permanent in the sense that as soon as you share that URL with yourself or anybody else, you do see the modification. If you were to change in the URL bar yellow by red, you would see the change. Yeah. Because it's WebXR, just to clarify, to give a bit more context, it's not native VR.
Very good. Okay, hang on, I'll stop for a second. So, okay.
I can give a quick meta demo.
Yeah, sure.
That's going to be extremely quick, and also because some of the comments were about giving presentation, kind of. So let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that's the demo page that Frode was browsing before. It works in the headset. If you're not in the headset, you can open on another device. If you use hmd.link on your headset, Quest, Vision, whatever, then you can open this way. One thing that was also interesting that's fresh from today is the link to the code base. So for example, here about sphere on the left wrist and whatnot, the code base is there, and we highlight roughly where the relevant code is. It's not necessarily everything, but it's at the very least a starting point. Some of it with annotation, some of it with comments, I mean. So all the code is there. Some of them have also linked to videos so that we can, in case the demo doesn't work, we have a way to go back to it. Cool. With a lot of enthusiasm, which is appreciated. So link to it. Bit more, so you have everything for all those demos. And one thing that's also the meta aspect is that I have a demo editor. So here that's the demo based on the title. But if you grab the title and put it at the end, for example, so I put the end at the beginning, and you see it moving. And if I save it, I got an error. Okay. Yes, because it's too fast. Sorry. And then I have the end at the beginning. So I can use this new JSON as a way to say, hey, the demo, you say the unfolding cube, it should be before the shortcut binding or whatever. But the demo, the steps of the demo themselves are manipulable entities, let's say, that you can move around because, yeah, maybe it did not really make sense in that order. Maybe other order would be more appropriate. So the point is the demo itself, the set of steps of the demo are annotated as data, JSON, and also can be manipulated then visually to organize other demos for the future. And yes, I'll put also the editor in the chat.
So, any questions at this point? We have really got serious interest in having lots of viewpoints. I mean, literally the symposium this year and the book this year, the theme is a myriad of perspectives.
Sorry, Peter's got a hand up, and I was going to raise a hand as well.
Yeah, Peter, go ahead, and then Brandel.
Yeah, I just wanted to call attention that a little bit earlier in the chat, I dropped a link to a Harvard landscape architecture lecturer who's running a course this semester on building a fortress of solitude and virtual reality. And what he's trying to do is challenge all of his students to think of what kind of an environment they'd want to be in thinking and how they'd take advantage of the fact that all of the physical limitations are gone inside the virtual world environment. So I just wanted to suggest I left links to his personal page and a description of that class and a tiny little excerpt of it in the blurb. And I was wondering whether we could reach out to him and invite him to present to the group one Monday.
Could you elaborate a little bit? It sounds good.
Basically, it sounded almost like something that you'd say, talking about the need to think outside of the box because we no longer have the physical limitations. So he's doing, from some of it, some sort of a seminar using game engine technology mostly to have his students try to think outside of the box and what kind of an environment they'd want to have as their personal fortress of solitude in virtual reality. So it seems like that really ties into, do we want to have a background and what kind of background we want? So maybe we could have him, or maybe have him bring a couple of his students and do a demo of what they're working on in their seminar for our group, and they could probably get an awful lot out of watching all of our video.
So yeah, sorry for asking you that dumb question because I didn't see your links. I just clicked on them. Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea. Everyone else agree? Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, do you want to get in touch first, Peter?
Okay, I can try to find his email address and drop him a note. Sounds good.
Excellent. His email address is on the second page. I just happened to spy it, so I'm going to paste it here in the chat. Yeah, thank you for that, Peter. Also, I do have to tell you that on our website, under the program, you can see what spots we have free. That goes for all of you, of course, what's coming up. We don't have a record and a schedule, it's all one. Brandel, please.
This was really great functionality, really, really useful for a sort of a multiplicity of applications and things like that. One thing that I wonder about is the scope of who it's going to and the level of like how long a leash they're willing to be led along with in terms of getting to certain functionality and applying to their specific goals. And so if this is going to a less technical audience, it would be worth making sure that all of the things are framed at the beginning and end of each of the sort of demo sections with what it achieves for them within the context of their knowledge work as an expert, rather than the machinations of the thing. It's essential, the work and the way to do it, I think, is short enough. But in order to make sure that they have enough focus to, I was just reading a book recently by Stephen Toulmin about the birth of modernity, and one thing they did say there is that even when Leibniz and Newton were fighting, it's clear from Leibniz's responses that he only read the first 10 pages, and of some of the optics, I think, document. And so, yeah, like making sure that those introductions really tee things up in order to make sure that it's anchored, and so that people can the only difference between small children and adults is that children will complain, "Are we there yet?" But the only difference is that the children are actually saying it, even though everybody is still thinking it. So yeah, that's one thing. I also wonder if, in the context of the fact that there are these incantations, these JSX things, I to that end, if there's any way to demystify them, that might be really useful. Something that I've done in the past is and this may not get you enough, but by decamel casing and actually changing those things into individual distinct words, something that has the ability to kind of represent those things, and it's something slightly closer to prose. It really kind of defangs programming code in order to make it clear what it is rather than what it does rather than what it is. Like um, pixel was it like device pixel ratio, as a single long kind of tapeworm word. Maybe Germans are okay with it, but English, we normally use spaces. So I just anything to defang and demystify the process for a wider audience, I think would be really, really valuable. Just because so much of the work is there, and pulling people along for it will be really valuable.
I think, obviously, I completely agree. Fabien has his hand up, and I'm sure he has more to say on this, but the issue of how it relates to people's work is really, really important. But we have to decide on what we mean by that, on what the actual result we want, because if they can do just the same work process, but it's not magical, let's say, may not be compelling. They say, I do it on my laptop anyway. So that's an amazingly fascinating challenge, so thank you. Fabien, Leon.
So a couple of things. First, it's easier for me to go back. So in terms of the camel case or code itself, it's kind of tricky. Like one of my personal professional hope is kind of to scaffold people into programming, that they don't have to program, but if they want to, they have to know they can. And is it through long words? Is it through syntax highlighting, which does works actually? Is it through hiding it, but then showing it? I'm a little bit afraid, because then if you hide it, maybe you never show it. There are two things that we're there to try to hope to help there rather. One is the icons. When you record, you have an actual icon in front of the code, but the code is still there. And the other was when there was the show panel or hide panel. So you have the code itself, but then shown on top, so it was like 45 and 45 degrees angles, that you had the code, and then more visible first, especially when you're standing up, is the kind of comment or annotation on top of it, so that you have like normal English or plain English there. But if you flip it, you still see how it's done, so you can still go back again, because it's not obvious here, and it's something that honestly has not been done properly in Paris either. But it's like, if you do have the keyboard, you can edit those right here and there. If you have the keyboard, you can type text and add it. If you type code, it's going to run like right there again. It's not like you save the page or whatnot. It is instantaneous. It's not something that's been showcased. So icons or comments or ways to kind of bridge that, that I think honestly that's one of the trickiest and yet most valuable point, because if you can indeed scaffold it, this kind of usage, then people are going to manipulate things directly, but also if they can manipulate like the 50 cards at once for the reference, that really, I think, uncovers something really powerful. Two quick things that I wanted to say, yes, is number one, the meta aspect of demos, including like the demo editor with the sequence, all that is like last week fresh. It's very new. The hope though, and that was the challenge of doing a Q1 demo, is that it sucks in a lot of ways, but it's still usable, and I think it did help because it's a lot of stuff. Not everything was shown today, but quite a few things were shown. But then it means reusing this kind of tooling and including better introduction and conclusion, either in text or in hiding for each of the steps. That's can definitely be worked on. But now there is an infrastructure for it, is the point, that there is a way to organize them, sort them, a kind of a structure in terms of JSON for what a demo is and what are the potential hints also, like condition hints. If the person did not pick the line of code after, let's say, 30 seconds, then the HUD displays a message that say, hey, you didn't do anything there. I mean, a bit more pedagogical than that, but basically temporal hints or conditional and temporal hints. So there are quite a few things to make the either each demo or the sequence of demo as something more I guess easier. And last comment, because I guess we spend quite a bit of time on the meta aspect of things. For example, the screenshot and the audio. Honestly, I think that's pretty powerful. I think being able to be in there and not have to type is also really cool, because even if you type fast, if you can just say words and then listen to them back and reuse them, I think it's pretty powerful, especially if you're already like picking things around. So I think that really does work. But the point is, it's not just for feedback about how the tool works, is you need to kind of think as an academic author, having an idea on the spot while being in VR. Like they just say the idea aloud and then they go back to the recording after. I think that in itself is kind of valuable. And sometimes when we spend too much time on the meta aspect, like we lose that part of it.
Thank you, Fabien. Leon, I just need to address that and to multiply what he was saying, going into some of the comments. There's a question about having a kind of a typing room. Absolutely not. Not at this point. We just have to focus. As an idea, absolutely brilliant. And to say that also, the whole, I see, Alan, you wrote about taking something out of VR. Completely agree with you, Alan, in principle. However, I think one of the lessons of last year, and Mark, this is the major thing where I'm agreeing with you, that I told you I would tell you later today. We worked on the JSON in and out, and that's really, really important. But now we really need to focus on the experience of doing. Because yes, it should be real data, but last year we worked so much on real data, we didn't focus enough on interactions. So that is really the thing now. Mark has said a few times, I just want to move some things in space. I don't care what they are. And I really think we're at that stage, right? A lot of this, how you get the thing in, how you do this, right now we need to be very careful, because that's very important. But with all due loving respect to Fabien, that sounds more like product than prototype, right? A real product would absolutely need that. Alan, briefly, quickly, and then Leon.
Yeah, no, I think what you already have, it gets you there for the demo. The idea, just so when I say take something out of VR, to make sure I wasn't using obscure words, saving something when you come out of VR, oh, I've got a new PDF that's ready, and here's an evidence of what I did. I think that's actually really powerful. So that goes into the demo aspect outside of the whole product aspect. That makes a good demo.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
that's a fair point. And after Leon, I'm going to show some brief slides to pull our thinking in a bit of a different direction. We only have a few minutes left, and then we're going to talk about our design notion. Leon, please.
Can everybody hear me, by the way?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so it's great to see this. I just happened to observe, and this might be an extension to what Fabien and Brandel were talking about, is I actually noticed that in these demos, Frode is saying the word, and now I'm pinching this very often, which I just realized I don't have that with usual screencasts. People are not saying I'm clicking this, or because you see this mouse cursor pointer thingy, so it's quite obvious. So maybe like what Brandel said about demystification, and what Fabien said about we need some sort of mouse cursor thingy. Yeah, it might be a pretty important, and maybe it sounds too product focused, but maybe it's important that if it looks good on video, then yeah, it's maybe easier to get the idea across in a time where people don't all have a VR headset to try it out and get interested in it. So that's just my few cents.
Yeah, that's a good point, Leon. Thank you. Peter, is it something super brief?
Yeah, I just think that we should make whatever we do in VR be recordable, so that you could get a transcript describing what things you interacted with and what gestures were recognized in the environment as a text document on the outside after you've been in it, and maybe make that replayable.
Right. Yeah, no, that's an interesting thought. Brandel, briefly, please.
Just on the subject of playback or demonstration, recognizing the disparity between what is visible to a stereoscopic observer versus a monoscopic representation of it. There are actually some really valuable things to try to recognize and disambiguate. So something that, because we don't have the depth cues, we can't see what distances things are at, it may be worth looking at whatever embellishments might be possible to do that. So either having gradients on surfaces or maybe a depth fog, not necessarily because it's actually right in the VR, but because it's better for the purposes of people being able to kind of see that. Likewise, to use camera angles or head angles that demonstrate things like that depth disparity, and making sure that those are being art directed from the perspective of the person outside of the headset rather than for the benefit of the person in it. It requires something of a change in terms of the sort of intention. One of the things that we do at Apple is we record everything on a Vision Pro, but we do have it in a great big 2-ton rig that we're moving around as though it's a Steadicam that we use for those things. And that helps, not just because it means it's steadier, but it also means that linguistically all of the language that people have about controlling a camera for the purposes of an audience is retained as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really important. And I have some ideas I'll talk to you about offline with specific, but that's why I was moving sideways quite a lot and not looking still. That was to help get that sense of depth communicated. So it's an important issue. Okay, Fabien, and then I got a show thing.
Yeah. Two things quickly. Tom asked about visual programming. First, you can program as is again, and it's visual-ish in the sense that you put your code snippets wherever you want. There are some demos where if the code snippets are close enough, they're going to make a visual line between the code snippets, where the input of one command is the output of the next one. So we basically chain the commands this way. It's not in there, I think. I don't remember, to be honest, but it's been there at some point, so it's definitely feasible. It's definitely interesting. And that's actual feedback when I did the demo to a friend of mine. The first demo of the year was to a Python developer, and he was like, oh, yeah, cool, I do this, but like, okay, now I want my Python notebook to be spatialized, basically. So that's that's also why we don't do demo just to developers, is because that's indeed the first thought, or it comes often. It's definitely something to explore, but it's not the default mode, let's say. And on replayability, I put a link, but there are some tools, especially like for Peter's question on how we can also record the movement itself and then replay this recording of the movement. And in terms of being able to test or us to, for example, give a fake demo where the person doesn't have the headset, but there is a fake virtual headset moving in the browser directly. I think having a session dedicated to this would definitely be worthwhile.
Okay, so we have 3 minutes left, and I'm just going to throw a different direction. 3 principles worth mentioning briefly. Connections are as important as content, something we need to look into the future. That's what academia is. And we need to start looking at other ways of hiding and grouping. So I'll just skip through these. I think you've seen these, but it's for context for the next sort of thing. Dragging things onto the cube, we've talked about this. But then there are different ways to unfold the cube. We really need to be creative, all of us. I'm just showing you a few obvious ones. It could be into a wall. It could be into different kind of spatial relationships, right? I'm hoping you guys will come up with better ones. We can have, instead of 6, we can have 9 cubes that appear. So I'll skip past all of this. We probably want to have some sort of linear text if it's going to be for academia. We can have all kinds of things we can pull out. Here's an important one. This is using the physical table as the light blue substrate, where things coming out of it, but it's demonstrating the frame of it, so it has something to relate to. And this is room size for the same kind of thing. And we can connected binding. We don't know how to do this yet. And here's the thing that I wanted your attention on to put your thinking somewhere else. Imagine it appearing like Fabien showed us with a 2D thing. It's kind of a cube, but it's 2D. But if you pull it down, you get it a bit longer. That's nice. But now you can pull it sideways. So maybe table of contents, maybe references. This is based on the potential of having a wide view, massive view, where you can have different information for different bits, including media. And then you can do a Brandl style, pull something out, having its own space as a giant mural. You can also tear things out and put it around. This comes from the notion of a lot of fiction where they use spreadsheets for stories. So each chapter they'll say main characters, environment, tone, all of that stuff. Maybe that's useful for helping here, because one of the things Jim mentioned was not to put things loosely, but have something to put it on. So here's an actual paper written by Mark and Dave Millard. It took me a while in Photoshop to have the full text in one column, references in another column, and then the headings. It's quite long, right? But I could easily imagine that we can pull out further to the side different ways of looking at the references. And this is something we'll be interviewing academics to find out how they want to interact with their references. So just at the very end, here is Mark's paper. And you could imagine many, many columns of different things. Now, that is not something to discuss now, but I squeeze it in because we have this need in the community, I think, right now to have what I would like to bill as a 12-hour design session. And that's only partly a joke, but what I think we should do on a non-Monday is dedicate a day that goes quite late into the evening Europe time, so the American people don't only have to be there in the morning. And we do something like every 2 hours, we're online. So people go away, sketch things, come back, present things, and so on. That's the rough thing. It can be changed to smithereens, and Fabien has an additional perspective.
Oh no, the perspective is let's do it.
That's not exactly alternative perspective. But it comes from two things. We had a Future of Tech Social here in London last year, and it was absolutely brilliant. We had no schedule, but suddenly late at night, oh, this, that, the other, right? Fantastic. It's difficult to do that with people all over the planet. And we also had experiences of having meetings where you go off in groups and come back. And finally, during the dot-com, one of the dot-com booms, I had a partner in Silicon Valley. I was still in London. What we would do during the workday is let Skype, it was Skype back then, just run all the time, even if we were not talking, right? So we could just, we didn't dial each other. It was like, oh, what do you think of so-and-so? So the feeling is maybe we do a Wednesday or a Thursday or something, and maybe we leave it running, maybe we do it times. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I could take a day off and play.
Okay, Brendel, that's brilliant.
This is sort of related, but I really enjoyed the conceptual explainer you just had with the maybe it was a Photoshop. Just that presentation you had, I think, was excellent. I'd love to see more of that because it helps, I think, even for a general audience, get their minds around what to look out for in VR, XR. So if that's part of the design sprint that you're talking about, yeah, I think that would be great.
It's particularly nice to hear that from you, Alan, Mr. Paper, because yes, we need different ways to think this. I have a friend who used to say that you got to think before you write. And of course, our community says, no, writing is thinking, right? But how you do that. And Rob, I want to interview you particularly quite soon on, forget academic, just how you write. Because there are some things we are doing in author that may or may not work for you, because that's one of my thinking spaces. I think with the design. Cool hat, Brandel, by the way. All right, so we'll
before thinking.
We'll do some more planning on this and get back to you all and see if we find a date that people want and open it up to anybody who's serious, right? It's that simple. If you care about this, great. We'll decide on something like we'll have a Google Doc or whatever to put things into. But yeah, imagine every 2 hours or whatever it might be, someone holds up a napkin or does a 3D blender thing that I could imagine Brandel doing, or Fabien does a bit of coding or whatever it might be. Yeah, it can be fun. Fabien, we lost your picture. We lost Fabien's picture. Anyway, thank you for today. And the kind of a jokey thing of if you want to find out what something is, write it incorrectly on the internet and someone will correct you. That's basically what today was, right? This was exactly what you were saying, Alan. Both the real work that Fabien has done and the tiny little sketch at the end, it was for you to have something to disagree with and not just air.
Very cool.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you very, very much. See you in a week. Bye for now. Bye.